Somewhere in the vastness of the crater, people are diligently doing their work in the face field. You can see that the workers are very tired. They did various jobs, raising water and lowering hay into that water. And even though the workers were trying hard to complete their tasks, someone in the background was still pushing them to work faster. That particular overseer was a petty goblin who kind of enjoyed his job, sitting on his favorite slave. This same slave couldn't stand it anymore, as he was constantly being whipped and blood and sweat ran down his body. Yes, this long life of slavery is just unbearably harsh. The strongest man in the world, the man who won the title at the age of 27, and has held the position of the best fighter in the world for the last 2 years. Heavyweight champion in the world's biggest MMA league. His name is Choi Hyun-seok, a man who even had his last defensive bout before his career ended without a single defeat. He once again defeated his opponent, for he was the champion from South Korea. But once he finished his career, Truck-san went out to his favorite job and kissed Hyun-seok goodbye. Hyun-seok couldn't believe that he died because he was hit by a truck. He was sad because the money that Hyun-seok had been saving for his retirement had disappeared just like that. Hyun-seok was desperate because he had worked so hard up to that point. Choi Hyun-seok died alone, wrestling until his death. But 30 minutes later, he found himself in an unknown space. Hyun-seok thought that this was even better, because now that he was dead, he didn't need to train, and now no defense matches. His only salvation was that he had no family or friends, which meant no one would be sad at his death. Suddenly, something very beautiful began to shine in front of the young man, and soon a girl's hand appeared, apologizing for being late to the SSS-ranked hero, Choi Hyun-seok. It was a girl with golden hair, wearing a white dress and angel wings behind her. The girl playfully introduced herself as Rachel. She was a recruiter who is looking for people whose life on Earth ended. Hyun-seok, looking at her imposing form, which made his face redden, assumed that this girl was a scout. He turned to the angel, taking her hands in his, asking Rachel to tell him more about everything. The girl smiled sweetly, saying that Hyun-seok had 2 options. The first option is to accept death as it is, and wait for your reincarnation in the next life as a miserable bachelor. The second option is to immediately resurrect himself as a hero to save the world that was waiting just for Hyun-seok. Rachel showed the guy what could be waiting for him in the future: beautiful girls, wealth, and him as an SSS-ranked hero. But it was too sudden for Hyun-seok, so he asked for some time to think about it. Besides, he thought about the fact that the girl's explanation was a bit scanty, so he could make a decision. Rachel approached the guy and inquired about whether Hyun-seok was really thinking about missing out on the opportunity of a lifetime. She told him that the guy would have wealth, honor, and beautiful women. Plus, he'll have special privileges. But for those who become a hero right now, they offer as a bonus a status window that allows him to become powerful as a badass character. All in all, they provide incredible service and lots of bonuses. This certainly sounded super cool, but Hyun-seok thought about the fact that he'd have to fight anyway if he was going to be a hero. He just stepped aside and they're telling him to fight again? So Hyun-seok told Rachel about just dying and being reborn in comfort. The girl, on the other hand, was not happy about it. She asked the guy to pay attention. Since the newly minted hero didn't understand anything, she would explain everything to him properly. The girl starts seducing the guy with pretty words, saying that if Hyun-seok becomes a gear in another world, the village headman will come running to him barefoot and serve him food as soon as it starts. Hyun-seok will look fondly at the headman and calmly tackle the easy quests he gives. And at that moment, the touched chief will say the following: "Hero, my daughter is known as the most beautiful woman in this village. If you will be so kind and take my humble daughter, this old villager will have nothing more to ask for." Watching this puppet show, Hyun-seok thought it was some kind of crap and he didn't need all this. Rachel also noticed that the guy wasn't interested in any of this, and besides, at this rate, her bonus would just go bad. In that case, she has no choice but to use Plan B. That's when the angel decided to leave, because if the hero doesn't want anything, she will assume that he doesn't care about the chance. She asked Hyun-seok to accept the fact that his life was over as an old bachelor and enjoy his next life. Suddenly something hit Hyun-seok and he asked the girl to wait for a while. The girl looked at the guy with a note of arrogance or conniving and warned Hyun-seok that there was no guarantee that he would be reborn as a human in the next life. This shocked the guy, and so he grabbed the girl's leg, begging for her to stop, for Hyun-seok had decided he would do it. Rachel pretended not to hear anything, and so Hyun-seok started tearfully shouting that he would do it and become this hero. The girl was very pleased that her plan had worked. In that case, she decided to proceed. Suddenly, a magic circle appeared under the guy's feet, much to his surprise. "Right now? Really?" Hyun-seok shouted. Rachel ran her finger around the magic circle and said they didn't have time, because a beautiful world awaits. Hyun-seok was not happy. He shouted that you can't just send someone to another world without preparation. But the girl didn't care. She had already done her job, and so the deed was done. She didn't understand. If Hyunseok already knew she was going there, why think about it so much? What if the girl on her arm got a call? Hey, where are you hiding your phone? Anyway, the girl took the call and reported that potential hero #137 421 Choi Hyunseok had just completed her relocation. Rachel also asked if the bonus would be sent to her right away. Soon, Hyunseok was lying on some wooden bed. He heard a strange voice calling him. Hyunseok thought it was the headman that the angel was talking about. It seemed to him that the development was obvious from the beginning, but suddenly Hyunseok is punched in the stomach. With the words, "I'll gouge your eyes out if you don't wake up," Hyunseok immediately jumped out of bed, thinking that he was attacked by some crazy person who wanted to die quickly. But when he looked more closely, he saw a red-skinned man with a bull's head in front of him. This red-skinned man didn't understand. Who was Hyunseok to keep sleeping in the slave dormitory? The guy didn't realize. Was it really the village chief who had the most beautiful only daughter? Hyunseok hoped it was a monster he should kill. Hyunseok humbly knelt down and explained that he was a hero. But the man didn't understand. In their day, are heroes so stupid? Hyunseok didn't understand what was going on and what had gone wrong. He couldn't believe that this beautiful angel would do this to him. In that case, Hyunseok thought that this cow's head was his learning quest. Hyunseok decided to calm down because if he was right, then the next thing he should do as a Korean is, yes, as a Korean he should act, which means he should hit that cow with all his strength so that he would be left with only a cow cake. Everything seemed to be going according to plan for Hyunseok, but seeing that the red-skinned man wasn't hurt and even more so holding Hyunseok's leg, he thought he was finished. The cowhead remembered that Hyunseok called himself a hero, and he was tired of this nonsense. He grabbed the guy's leg tightly and Hyunseok felt a crunch. At that moment, the cowhead decided to strike with his fist, for he thought that in this way the damn trash would come to his senses if he got a good night's sleep. After some time in the underground prison, Hyunseok demanded that the door be opened for him. He ordered that this cow's head be returned to him so that he could fight him again. A small goblin with a sword behind his back came to the noise. He was very unhappy that this nasty man was making noise, and if he shouted again, the goblin promised to make soup out of Hyunseok. Hyunseok was afraid of the sword and promised to be quiet. The goblin warned once more that he was watching the boy, and Hyunseok understood every word he said. Soon, Hyunseok was sitting on the floor and thinking about this so-called awesome adventure in another world. Grasping his head, he didn't understand where things had gone wrong. At this rate, not to mention the village chief's daughter, Hyunseok would die a virgin for the second time. Soon, Hyunseok was called out by a voice, saying that he was his senior who would become a hero. The man explained that they were in the fortress of the Demon King's army that was enslaving people. By the way, the man was Korean, and it seemed Hyunseok wasn't the only one who had been summoned to this world. In any case, Hyunseok asked Sunbae to tell him what was going on here and why they had gotten to this place in the first place. The man grinned, wondering if Hyunseok really wanted to know everything. In that case, the man shouted loudly, "Hey, self-proclaimed heroes, are you still alive? The real hero who came to save us is already here." At this point, there were voices from the cameras telling them to be rescued, some saying that he was a real hero, so it was him who should be rescued, and some saying that he was the hero. Hyunseok didn't understand what kind of joke this was, but the man explained that there were 100 heroes who had fallen into the fortress of the Demon King's army. The cow's head that Hyunseok was looking for is the head of this place, Riadrun, and the guard Hyunseok saw earlier is called Jark. He's known for his cruelty, so he asked the boy to be careful. The man also said that they were only in this wretched place because of an evil demon named Rachel. Hyunseok's eyes widened at that moment, and the man blamed that damn demon for the reason they were all in this place. Hyunseok didn't understand how it was that Rachel had sent them to the wrong place. Were they supposed to show up in a completely different place? The man said he was sure of it. Heroes who had been captured in other places had told him. According to them, there is another starting area reserved for heroes only, and most of the heroes start in cities or rural villages. The heroes usually live normal lives without any abilities, but still, none of them start right in the middle of the Demon King's army like them. Hyunseok seemed to have already lost his mind. He finally realized that the reason he fell here was because of that angel. Back to the original point, the slaves worked hard in sweat while the goblins bullied them, and Hyunseok was made a horse in general. Soon the work was finished and the goblin ordered all the slaves to go back. At this moment, Hyunseok thought about how he would one day finish off that small and fat bastard of a goblin. The shift was over and Hyunseok was already lying in his prison, thinking it was a much better place than what was outside. Hyunseok suddenly remembered the angel's words that he would have special privileges. It seemed like the girl had said that he would have them right away if he decided to become a hero. In that case, Hyunseok decided to try the popular slogan that is used everywhere. Putting his hand out in front of him, he said, "Status window." A status window came up in front of him. He had level 1, slave roll, strength 28, dexterity 29, stamina 31, mana 10, skill, rank D pickaxe. But what he had was 0 bonus points. Hyunseok was surprised that his stamina was 31. The man behind the wall was also surprised that Hyunseok's stamina was 31, while the guy said his strength was 28. The man remembered Hyunseok talking about how he was once a champion. As expected, Hyunseok was different because he already had 30 stats even when he was level 1. But it didn't matter to Hyunseok because he was still a slave. But the man said otherwise because with those characteristics, Hyunseok would definitely be able to get out of this place and become a hero. But the guy was tired of listening to this nonsense. The man kept saying that normal people only get the pick skill, but Hyunseok's case is very rare. But the guy was really tired of listening to all this, so he wished his comrade behind the wall a good night's sleep. While falling asleep, Hyunseok didn't care, because even if that was the case, he was still level 1, so he wouldn't be able to escape. When that man finally fell asleep, Hyunseok decided to open the status window once more. Taking another look, he saw that some stats seemed promising. Mana that gave superhuman strength and those unknown hero points. Hyunseok had asked the man about those glasses before, but no one was aware of it. Suddenly, a familiar bright light shone in front of Hyunseok's eyes, and soon the girl's breasts appeared, which of course frightened the guy. The girl greeted the hero, saying that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Rachel flew up to the hero with a smile and said, "Should this Rachel tell about the hero's glasses?" She started talking about how hero points are an important feature that makes the hero's life easier. You can get them by doing quests and use them. But Hyunseok didn't care about her words. Grabbing the girl with his massive hands, he squeezed her so hard that the crunching of bones could be heard. All Hyunseok needed was to give this fool a good beating. After a while, Rachel was apologizing for what she had done. She would never have thought of her magic circles being broken because she spilled some coffee on them while she was having a snack. Hyunseok realized that now, as punishment, Rachel had become his manager. The girl explains that to be more precise, she has become his personal fairy. She has to be by his side and help him until Hyunseok defeats the Demon King. But Hyunseok didn't care about the hero's business, which of course surprised Rachel. Hyunseok went to bed, saying he wasn't going to defeat the Demon King. More accurately, he could just live a normal life here. Rachel explained that there are many potential heroes who choose to live quietly and peacefully, but after all, Hyunseok has SSS level potential. In any case, Hyunseok decided that it didn't mean he was obligated to do anything since he didn't feel like it was his mission. The girl was puzzled, but Hyunseok decided that he didn't want to fight anymore like in his past life. The girl was confused. Had this guy always been like this? She thought he was an idiot who knew nothing but fights and women. What had changed? A while ago, Rachel was bowing down to her superiors. She didn't understand why she should become Choi Hyunseok's personal fairy. Rachel thought that she might be wrong about something, but making someone with her experience a personal fairy was too much. And does the leadership really want her to stay with him until he destroys the Demon King? The management was adamant, for that was their final decision for Rachel. The personal fairy is like a subordinate of the assigned warrior. She must actively cooperate and go through successes and failures with the assigned warrior. The management decided to send Rachel to the Demon Fortress where Choi Hyunsuk is now, and they demanded that Rachel not come back until she completes the mission. The girl was extremely unhappy. She tearfully begged not to do it, for she did not want to be thrown out into the filthy human world. After telling the whole story to Hyunseok, the guy said that in any case, she as a personal fairy should obey every word of her warrior. Then Rachel should contribute to his escape plan. Rachel had no choice but to agree to the guy's terms. A knock on the door. Hyunseok quickly grabs the girl and starts hiding her. The goblins have ordered the meat to wake up. Rachel was resentful that Hyunseok grabbed her. After all, she can use invisibility magic herself. Hyunseok didn't know what was going on. The roll call was over, so why was that bastard here? Goblin Jark ordered the boy to get up, as he was being summoned by Riadrun. While in Riadrun's office, he approached Hyunseok, saying that he had heard the guy was working hard lately. Turns out Jark had told Riadrun that he had a nice new mount. Hyunseok was shocked. Did that stinking goblin really compliment him? Riadrun originally thought Hyunseok was a crazy person, but he was pleased to see him working so hard. That's why Riadrun proposed an idea to Hyunseok to become the head slave. This suggestion surprised everyone without exception. Riadrun explained their work speed had gotten much slower in the last few days, so he offered the position. Rachel at this point was afraid that Hyunseok would say yes. She was hoping that the guy would immediately reject his proposal. She really didn't understand how a hero could grovel before the officers of the Demon King's army. Suddenly Jark and Riadrun heard a strange sound. It was Hyunseok. who with a bang of his head on the table, made it clear that he agreed to the proposal, which of course shocked his companion. Hyeonseok promised to do everything he could to make these people work. Ryodrun was extremely pleased, for unlike his first impression of him, he liked Hyeonseok. He promised to write a special letter about Hyeonseok so that he would be accepted into the Demon King's army if he did a good job. At this moment, Hyeonseok was cursing fate for everything, for his escape plan was now a failure. A few days later, the slaves were given another whipping and ordered to move faster. It was the new overseer, Hyeonseok, who called the slaves weaker than his grandmother. He didn't understand how they were going to fill the quota for the day. At this moment, the system reported that because Hyeonseok had been leading a lot of people for a long time, his hidden charisma feature had increased. Throwing away the apple, the guy was very happy about it. Hyeonseok was overjoyed, because being the head slave was the best. The other slaves didn't share his happiness, thinking that Hyeonseok had lost his mind because he was a hero and now he was their enemy. Rachel also thought the guy was crazy, because they're going to be in big trouble if Hyeonseok keeps this up. With a smile on his face, the guy asked the girl to be quiet and trust the process. After all, she was like a sparrow, unable to understand the true intentions of a phoenix like him. Suddenly, one of the slaves fell to the ground and Hyeonseok immediately started yelling at him, claiming that he had skipped lunch and was now crawling like a worm. At that moment, the system reported that Ryodrun's favor with Hyeonseok had increased. The guy is just a few steps away from reaching his goal. He looked up at the tower and thanked Sir Ryodrun, saying that he had served faithfully. Rachel started yelling at the hero again. She thought Hyeonseok wanted to go on an adventure and escape from this place. She didn't understand. Is this what adventure or escape looks like? Hyeonseok, on the other hand, explains that the system told him to do so. He asks the girl if following the system isn't part of a hero's duty. Rachel was still against it. After all, it raises favor from the officials of the Demon King's army. She can't believe that there is such a quest for the hero. But Hyeonseok was telling the truth. He even decided to read the quest out loud. You, finding yourself in the fortress of the Demon King's army because of some idiot's mistake. Listening to what Hyeonseok was saying, the girl realized that it was a lie, because the manner of speech was definitely strange. The system is a kind program that only uses neutral language. Hyeonseok was clearly tired of explaining everything to the girl. He said that he was telling the truth, and besides, maybe SSS-level heroes have a slightly different system. But the girl still didn't understand how it happened. All in all, last night, Rachel didn't understand how it was that Hyeonseok was so happy to accept the proposal, and so she called him crazy. Hyeonseok grabbed the girl and said that he wasn't the crazy one, because it was her fault he was in this place. Soon, the system notified Hyeonseok about the hero's quest. As it turned out, the assignment did say that since Hyeonseok was in the Demon King's army fortress because of some idiot's mistake, he might feel as guilty as a person who discovered that the toilet had run out of toilet paper. The system asked the hero not to despair. Luckily for him, Hyeonseok has a chance to win the favor of an officer of the army of the Demon King Ryodrun. A true hero must learn to use his enemy. Goal: to gain Ryodrun's favor. Reward: 100 hero points. It was then that Hyeonseok saw the quest, but he still didn't understand what he had to do. Returning to the present, Hyeonseok ordered the slaves to start the song of the Demon King's 3rd Army Corps. Seeing all this nonsense, Rachel couldn't believe it. Was this really his quest? Suddenly, it hit her. Only the higher-ups could change the content of the quest, so why do it for Choi Hyeonseok? Soon Jark called out to the lad, telling him to follow him as Sir Ryodrun was summoning him. While in Ryodrun's office, he began to say that slave productivity had increased dramatically recently. Hyeonseok said it's nothing like that. He's just a humble, uncivilized man. It's all thanks to Sir Ryodrun's wise decisions. At this moment, Rachel was really ashamed of the hero, because Hyeonseok really thought that such cheap flattery would work on an officer of the demon army. But as it turned out, the system reported that Hyeonseok had reached his goal and the hero's task had been completed, and Ryodrun himself was shining with joy. In addition, Hyeonseok had gotten 100 hero points, and now he had access to the budding hero store. Hyeonseok and especially Rachel were shocked that it worked. The guy was glad that everything was going according to plan. The favor quest was done, so it was time to move on to the next part of the plan. At that moment, Hyeonseok turned to Sir Ryodrun. He asked the demon if he could start training the slaves, if he didn't mind, of course. This puzzled the demon, so Hyeonseok decided to explain what he wanted. He asked Ryodrun to visualize a group of elite labor slaves moving in unison. Slaves, experts in discipline, doing the work for 3 without a shadow on laziness. With such slaves, the construction of the fortress could be finished in a week. Ryodrun understood Hyeonseok's thinking, but he was about to refuse, as the men were too weak physically to work and train. But Hyeonseok said that the commander would immediately praise Ryodrun and say, Well done, Riadrun. The second Riadrun allowed Hyunseok to train slaves, for which the boy thanked him. While in her cell, Rachel is depressed, as she is sure her hero has gone mad. First, he humiliates himself in front of the Demon King's army, and now he even trains slaves. She didn't understand how she could live when she felt so depressed and hopeless. Hyunseok felt that the girl was so noisy, in which case he again said he had a plan. But the girl thought Hyunseok was trying to make a fool of her again. Hyunseok asked if she thought he was her. Hyunseok explained that he planned to use the slaves to start a rebellion. But the girl didn't seem to understand what kind of rebellion he was talking about. Hyunseok explained that there are 3,000 human slaves in this fortress, and the soldiers from the Demon King's army are only about 500. In addition, there is a human alliance base not far from the fortress. That's why they are rushing the construction, because of these humans. With a smile on his face, Hyunseok continued to explain to the girl that in the chaos of the rebellion, they would ask for support from the human alliance. At that moment, the girl began to shine with joy and admiration, because up until that moment, she had thought that Mr. Hero was a dumb man who only thought about muscle and fighting. In any case, Hyunseok only has to check the reward for the quest. Rachel was shocked. Did he really get hero points? Wasn't the whole quest story a lie? Hyunseok got tired of explaining that it was like that. Plus now there's such a thing as a hero store. At this point, Hyunseok decides to open a hero store, hoping to get something good. Hyunseok resolutely opens something, hoping it will be his salvation. He clicks on Hero Shop using the bonus points. He exclaims happily that he's finally gotten the hero skill, but his expectations are clearly interrupted by something unexpected. Messages appear with options: hold your breath, and something absurd: hold your shit better. Hyunseok is stunned, clearly not expecting such skills. Rachel explains that the other abilities are cooking, cleaning, and laundry, and wonders if those skills are really necessary for a hero. She justifies that this is just the first level of the store. Rachel adds that if you collect more points and level up the store, you can find something really useful. Hyunseok is furious and calls Rachel a fraud and lunges at her, while she screams to be rescued. Hyunseok is commanded to gather and salute the Demon King. All the uniformed soldiers line up and salute him. The head of the army announces that they will be singing the song of the Third Corps and calls for them to begin. The soldiers sing, praising the Demon King's army and inspiring themselves to fight the humans. They say that nothing is more important than the Demon King's affection. Riadrun watches contentedly, happy to let Hyunseok train the army. The door swings open abruptly, creating a tense atmosphere. Jark, the goblin, bursts in on Riadrun with an important message. He shouts that he has an urgent report to make. Jark anxiously reports that an army of humans is approaching in their direction. He adds that the 8th division that was fighting them has already been trapped and has retreated. Riadrun, looking at the map, realizes that the 8th division is the largest unit in their region. If it has been defeated, then the enemies will be here soon. Riadrun is concerned that they will have to leave the fortress when it is almost complete. Jark insists on evacuating, but Riadrun stops him, telling him to wait. Riadrun looks at the army gathered outside and reflects that since ancient times, war has always been a battle for resources. He adds that the cardinal rule of war is to never lose a good supply officer. Finally, Riadrun tells Jark to go, saying that he'll take care of Hyunseok and catch up later. Hyunseok, standing on the training field, addresses the soldiers, demanding that they continue training. However, he notices some strange sound and suspects that today's training will be cancelled again due to Riadrun's observation. Hyunseok notices that his abilities have increased slightly, but not enough to start the coup de grace. He realizes that he isn't ready for his plans yet. Hyunseok sighs, wishing that something unexpected would help him increase his abilities, at which point Riadrun suddenly jumps down from a height. Riadrun catches Hyunseok and calls his full name, which surprises him. Hyunseok, surprised, calls him Sir Riadrun. Riadrun, with a stern expression, says there's no time and demands that Hyunseok go with him right now. Hyunseok is confused and asks where they're going and why so suddenly. At this time, in another part of the fortress, a battle breaks out, and the commander of the men calls his army to attack, saying that victory is near. The humans rush in and the goblins try to hold off the onslaught, clearly losing control of the situation. One of the soldiers spots Riadrun and shouts that the man is Red Nightmare Riadrun. The commander orders the regular soldiers to retreat, leaving the fight to the knights, stating that victory is at hand. Hyunseok is surprised to see human troops here. He ponders that perhaps now is his chance, an opportunity to stab the Demon King's commander in the back and return to human society. The knight attacks, pointing his spear at Riadrun, shouting, "Die, Red Nightmare!" He leaps with great speed and determination. Riadrun effortlessly intercepts the spear. His hand clutches the spear with such force that it breaks, and he easily stops the attack. Hyeonseok sees this moment and is shocked by Ryodron's power. His eyes go wide with surprise, for he has just witnessed unprecedented power. Ryodron activates his technique, 7th movement of Ryodron martial arts. A complex pattern of bones and fiery lines appear, intensifying his attack. With a powerful kick, Ryodron delivers a devastating blow, crushing the knight and breaking through his armor. Following this, he uses a technique called Wave of Destruction. A huge blast of power blows everything around him, leaving destruction and dust. Ryodron turns to Hyeonseok and asks if he's okay. His figure can be seen against the backdrop of the fiery explosion. Hyeonseok nervously agrees and hurriedly replies that it's time for him to leave. He clearly doesn't want to be around during this tense moment. The tower where the battle just took place is destroyed. The whistling of the wind can be heard, as if the fortress is now deserted. A gathering of refugees is taking place on the battlefield. Soldiers separate the people, urging the citizens of the Kingdom of Marriott to follow one direction and the citizens of the Drazen Empire to follow the other. Dramatic events unfold. A warrior in armor asks the captives if they are warriors, and one of the men confirms with some confusion. The warrior invites them to follow him, promising different treatment for warriors and ordinary captives. The captives are happy to do so, hoping for better treatment. The soldier then thanks the warriors for their arrival, giving them a sense of importance. A man named Olaven Grimer then appears before them, introducing himself and demonstrating his credentials, being the Duke of the Drazen Empire and commander of the Allied forces. One of the soldiers also informs them that the evacuation of the citizens is complete. The soldier goes on to say that all those who called themselves warriors have been mobilized. In that case, Olaven gives the order to begin the operation, and a command is sounded to all the assembled troops to take their positions. Suddenly, they are announced that their task will be to destroy all the warriors in front of them. A horse-drawn carriage moves through the woods. In one of the closed carriages sits Hyeonseok, with a grim expression on his face as he says goodbye to the other world and his second life, realizing that his adventure is coming to an end. Hyeonseok realizes that all the pursuers have been killed and the chase is over. Fairy Rachel tries to convince Hyeonseok that the crisis is an opportunity and offers to go to the demon army headquarters to assess the situation. However, Hyeonseok is visibly annoyed and calls her a liar. Ryodron suddenly wakes up, apologizing for falling asleep, and asks if Hyeonseok said anything. He hastily replies that he in no way said nothing, but was just mumbling about how honored he was to accompany Ryodron. Ryodron replies that he's glad to hear that, and informs him that they're almost there, at the 3rd Corps headquarters, suggesting that Hyeonseok get ready. Hyeonseok learns that he will be officially enlisted into the Demon King's army, and it gives him a shock. Soon their approach is spotted on the fortress wall, shouting Ryodron's return and ordering the gates to be opened. The carriage, escorted by guards, enters the city. Ryodron says he will take them straight to the commander. Ryodron and Hyeonseok walk through the streets, and Hyeonseok says excitedly that he's honored to meet the commander so soon. Ryodron confirms that it is indeed an honor, but warns Hyeonseok to behave appropriately in front of the commander. Afterward, Ryodron adds, "Otherwise you will die." This clearly scares Hyeonseok. Hyeonseok mentally tries to convince himself that if he stays calm, he can handle even the most dangerous situations. Finally, he decides that he won't give up despite the difficulties. They arrive at a large door, and Ryodron announces to the commander that he has returned. The commander calls for them to enter. Hyeonseok hears a woman's voice and begins to suspect that the commander may be a woman. Inside, they are greeted by a mysterious woman sitting on a throne, clearly impressed by her imposing aura. She says, "Oh, whom it has brought." She turns to Ryodron, welcoming him back. We learn that this woman is Hemus, commander of the 3rd Corps of the Demon King's army. Hyeonseok is struck by Commander Hemus's beauty, her appearance surprising him, and he wonders if such beauty is really appropriate for a commander. Hemus thanks her with a smile for the compliment, and Hyeonseok doesn't know what to say in response, pondering whether he should compliment her as well. Ryodron feels guilty for not being able to defend the fortress. Hemus, however, reassures him, explaining that it was the 8th Division commander's fault, not his. But then she adds with a chuckle that she should have made herself a bag out of that commander's leather a long time ago. Hyeonseok clearly feels the pressure and power coming from Hemus, and realizes that she doesn't like that he survived and came back. He can barely breathe from her presence, and Hemus mockingly remarks that he came back like a loser. The pressure from her words and aura far exceeds what he's experienced before. Hemus shifts his attention and asks Ryodron who he brought with him. He introduces Hyeonseok, mentioning that he has told him about him before and states that he brought him to enlist in the official demon army. Hemus calls Hyeonseok cute with a smile and wonders if she should expect anything special from someone who was chosen by Ryodron himself. Hyeonseok, overwhelmed with fear and a desire to survive, promises to do his best. Hemus notes that with a body like that, Hyeonseok won't last long in the demon army. She turns to Riedrun to confirm her thought, and he agrees, adding that the others will just eat him. Hyeonseok is stunned by this news. Riedrun tries to defend his new comrade, reminding him that human participation in the demon army is not such an unprecedented event. He offers to personally train Hyeonseok if Hemus gives her permission, but she instantly rejects his offer, saying that you can't waste time on a human. Hemus uses the Force, releasing powerful magical energy. Some strange creature appears in her hands and she interacts with it. Hyeonseok is panicked and doesn't understand what is happening. Hemus decides that Hyeonseok will be assigned to watch over her pet from now on. A demonic dog-like creature with a bell around its neck turns out to be her pet named Bobo. Hyeonseok is surprised to call it a pet and questions its cuteness. He even suspects that this dog came straight from hell. Hyeonseok senses a powerful aura from Bobo, even though he is still a child. Riedrun also notices this power and confirms it. Hemus asks Hyeonseok why he's reacting so strangely, hinting that he might not like the situation. Choi Hyeonseok proudly declares that he's a candidate for the demon army and that he's honored to take care of Bobo even though he's human. Hemus approves of his enthusiasm, and Bobo immediately lunges at Hyeonseok, hitting him with his paw. Hemus says that Bobo is growing up, so he needs to be fed or he'll get mean, adding that it's hard to change caretakers, since Bobo has eaten them all. Hyeonseok agrees and vows to fulfill his duties. Later, Hyeonseok finds himself in front of a door with a sign that reads Bobo's house. He is perplexed and sees Rachel running up to him, informing him of a new heroic quest right in the middle of the demon army. Hyeonseok tries to calm her down so as not to wake Bobo. It becomes clear to him that this quest is to win Bobo's affection in order to gain 200 hero points. He is surprised by such a quest and doesn't quite understand what this has to do with being a hero. Then a goblin appears and shouts "human" to get Hyeonseok's attention. Hyeonseok introduces himself, but internally realizes that he is clearly being used as fodder for the goblin. He asks where the other elders are, to which the goblin calmly replies that they are gone. They are all dead. The goblin explains to Hyeonseok that their task will be to prepare food for Bobo. Hyeonseok is surprised at the simplicity of the task and agrees. However, Bobo soon wakes up and attacks the goblin. The goblin panics and tries to explain that he has brought a fresh human especially for Bobo. Hyeonseok furiously questions what the goblin is doing, and the goblin tells him to shut up. The goblin recognizes that one of them will die anyway and prepares for a desperate fight. Hyeonseok, unwilling to give up, declares that it is the goblin, not him, who will die. Bobo, seeing the appetizer in front of him, looks ecstatic and prepares to feast. Hyeonseok and Rachel realize that the pet clearly enjoyed their gift. Rachel desperately runs away from Bobo, screaming that it's too much. Hyeonseok, watching all of this, coldly reminds her not to run too far away or Bobo will get hungry again. He notices a huge bone in his inventory, an item that can attract monsters of the hound family. Using his resourcefulness, Hyeonseok decides to use the item. Hyeonseok calls out to Bobo and, showing him the bone, asks if he wants it. He then throws the bone and Bobo promptly runs after it. Rachel, all exhausted, wonders how Hyeonseok even found such an object and expresses regret that he hasn't used it before. Hyeonseok, smiling, replies that it's thanks to his brilliant brain that doesn't miss the little things, assuring himself that this task should be easy now. Choi Hyun-suk, while in the demon castle, realizes that handling Bobo's care isn't so easy. Bobo, clearly not satisfied with the bone, became angry, and his rage was immediately visible. Hyeonseok was clearly in a panic, trying to figure out how to handle the situation. Rachel suggested taking Bobo outside, hoping that would calm him down. Hyeonseok thinks frantically, trying to remember something to help him deal with the enraged creature. A magic word comes to his mind that might help. He decides to try the word walk, and to his surprise, Bobo actually calms down, looking out with an innocent expression on his face. After that, Bobo suddenly rushes towards Hyeonseok as if showing affection for him. Hyeonseok ends up with Bobo in an embrace, which looks funny and touching. Outside, Hyeonseok tries to calm Bobo down by leading him, but the situation quickly gets out of hand and he keeps trying to calm him down by yelling walk, treat, and other words. They run into difficulty finding the kitchen, and Rachel decides to ask a goblin passing by to figure out where they should go next. Hyeonseok calls out to the goblin asking for help finding the way. The goblin is surprised to see a human and is about to say something, but at that moment Bobo growls furiously, eyes burning red. The goblin is startled, and the hero informs him that it is now Bobo's time for a walk. The goblin is concerned as to why the man is with Bobo, and at that moment the monster tries to bite him. The hero tries to hold Bobo back and calms him down. The hero decides to explain to the goblin that he is now in charge of Bobo and wonders if he knows where the kitchen is. The goblin is a bit confused, but still points the way to the left. Hyunseok, along with the fairy helper, is perplexed, but they continue forward. They laugh at the goblin's fear and wonder if he is really part of the demon army. Eventually, the hero decides that they need to find some meat in the kitchen to feed Bobo so they can deal with his hunger. The fairy starts teasing that the guy won't be taking care of Bobo for the rest of his life, to which he reacts with bewilderment, not realizing what she's getting at. The hero begins to share his dream of a fateful meeting with the blonde and his desire to marry her. His thinking about it turns to deep brooding as he repeats the word marry, with a tinge of uncertainty and some confusion. It's finally gotten to Hyunseok. Bobo is missing and now the guy is screaming like a madman for his doggy to be found. Hyunseok panics, noticing that all he has to do is look away for a second and the pet immediately disappears. He looks around and the fairy points out the direction. At this time, the dog confidently runs along the path, heading somewhere forward. The hero, noticing the pet, says with relief, "My little guy, you made me nervous." The dog runs happily, uttering woof as he goes, and a disturbing situation appears ahead. Someone shouts that Commander Regis has been killed, and they want to find the culprit. Hyunseok and the pet look at each other in silence, as if trying to figure out what happened. The fairy adds that Bobo seems to be the one involved in what is happening. There comes a moment when the fairy shouts, "Are we going to die? Is that it?" The hero tries to get everyone to focus and keep running. He notices a dead end and exclaims with despair, not realizing how to get out of it. Hyunseok finds himself in front of a crowd of hungry goblins, who have decided that tonight they will have a dinner of him and his dog. He nervously addresses the goblins, calling them comrades, but they only want to eat him. The goblins discuss that the commander hasn't been fully digested yet, and now their next target is the hero and his pet. They laugh and prepare to tear them apart. Hyunseok, full of anger, exclaims that they dare not do that. He then turns to them and asks, "Do you know who the brave one is?" Bobo looks very cute but still doesn't get the point. The goblin, holding a knife, says in amazement that the monster in front of him is a monster. Hyunseok responds by resenting the rudeness of such a statement. He holds up a dog named Bobo and yells that it's Bobo. The goblin is confused and asks if it is Commander Hemus' pet, but hesitates, suggesting that it might be a human trick. However, he begins to wonder what if it is true. Hyunseok chides the goblin for not recognizing Bobo and feels ashamed of him. The goblin, embarrassed, asks what the man is doing. Hyunseok activates beast mode with a smile, and Bobo starts growling menacingly. The dog attacks, and the goblin screams in panic. Hyunseok notices that a dog without a muzzle can be dangerous. The goblins apologize in fear for their mistake, admitting that they didn't know about Bobo. Hyunseok receives a notification from the system that he has conquered many demons due to his charisma, and his hidden attribute, charisma, has increased. He is surprised that this is being credited to him. Hyunseok soon realizes that his actions have attracted attention. Hemus, noticing what's happening, comments that the newcomer is doing interesting things. In her office, she laughs when she learns that Hyunseok used her name and Bobo's to survive. He, upon realizing this, admits that he has committed a serious sin. Hemus, however, takes it as a compliment and says that he's smarter than the rest of them. She adds that he has courage. Hyunseok, surprised, thanks her. Hemus explains that the demon army solves everything by force, which causes problems. Hyunseok, wary, asks about the problems, to which Hemus replies that he'll know everything soon. A woman named Hemus asks Hyunseok if he has thought about becoming a leader. Hyunseok is surprised and doubts whether he's suited for the role with his skills. Hemus explains that it would be difficult now, and she can't let him keep using her name and Bobo. She talks about a crucial battle in the demon army where you can take the rank of the enemy. Hemus promises to protect Hyunseok for a month, but after that, he has to defeat an opponent of her choice. Each victory extends her protection for a month. Hemus adds that if he gradually rises to battalion commander, he might become useful. Hyunseok is concerned about what will happen if he loses, and Hemus warns him not to count on a peaceful death. It's better to die in battle. Hyunseok realizes that he must agree, as refusing could cost him his life, and an opponent has already been chosen. Rachel rebukes him for worrying about saying goodbye, reminding him that his potential talent is rated SSS. She asks if he understands the meaning of potential. Rachel reminds Hyunseok that potential is just an opportunity, not a guarantee of power. Hyunseok chides her for her lack of support, reminding her that she's his personal fairy. He soon finds himself at the door leading to the kitchen and is shocked by the mess he sees. He cautiously walks in and asks if anyone is there. He is soon greeted by Chef Kulkin, who assumes Hyunseok is the man the commander spoke of. Hyunseok explains that he's looking for a treat for Bobo, preferably fresh meat. Culkin notices that Hyunseok is Bobo's new caretaker, but refuses him, explaining that the only orders from Hemus are not to touch him. Hyunseok tries to find a way to convince Culkin to help, citing Bobo's needs. Culkin ponders his request. Culkin tells Hyunseok that if he really wants meat, he should get it himself by hunting like the others. At this time, laughter erupts in the kitchen, and the meat is chopped into pieces with a loud sound. Someone exclaims that the meat is soft, and another replies that it is the belly of Patel, who died yesterday. They discuss how delicious the meat is. Hyunseok, watching, wonders if these creatures are cooks, since they look more like butchers. Culkin crosses his arms and looks at Hyunseok as he ponders what it means to hunt on his own. A group of hunters, including Hyunseok, are fighting a huge boar that is supposed to be their dinner. Suddenly, the boar kills one of them named Morgan. The rest of the hunters rush in without thinking of the consequences, trying to avenge their comrade. Hyunseok watches and ponders who will end up as prey. His fairy offers to escape, but Hyunseok jokes that it would be like a miracle. He realizes that if the situation doesn't change, he too will be in danger, and decides to act. When approached, he agrees to go forward, but is stopped, informing him that the hunt is over. The boar lies defeated, and Hyunseok wonders how he managed it, given his wounds. However, the losses are great. 12 men are dead and many are wounded. Despite this, the leader of the group doesn't seem too concerned. He orders a short break and then finds a new target. Hyunseok is perplexed as to whether he shows any concern for the dead. The hero decides to cancel the escape plan and informs Rachel, who is surprised. There are many monsters around them, and the fairy is concerned that the hero is going to fight them. However, the hero denies this and explains that he needs to gain experience to level up. He ponders that all he needs to do is to strike the last blow to gain experience. The fairy agrees, but considers this an unfair way to do it. The hero thanks her for the information and decides to return. He realizes that time is short and he needs to get stronger before the end of the month if the squad leader is serious. Upon meeting the chief, the hero says that he didn't run away and even decided to join the Demon King's army in battle. The chief is surprised by his decision and the hero laughs, noting the chief's insight. Culkin looks at the man with rage and calls him human. Hyunseok, a little nervous, wonders if he's overreacting, since the officer usually approves of such bold statements. Culkin, laughing, admits that he likes Hyunseok's boldness. The boy replies that it's because of the great chief's influence. Culkin decides that the man should lead the next hunt, much to Hyunseok's surprise. The chief explains that for them, leadership is the most honorable position, and though newcomers are usually not trusted, they will make an exception for him. Hyunseok, a little concerned, tries to object that the others might not be happy if a human gets in charge. At that moment, a goblin appears, shouting about a monster attack. The hero and his companions hear a howl and realize that a pack of Urins is approaching. He asks them if the situation is dangerous. The chief replies that it is not, but that urine meat is unpalatable. Deciding that they have no choice, he tells everyone to take their tools and make urine stew. Hyunseok rejoices at the opportunity to strike one last blow and gain experience. At this time, the fairy hands him extra power, increasing his health and strength by 3 minutes. She jokingly asks not to be too moved by it. However, the hero is annoyed that he didn't get help sooner, and expresses this when the fairy gets hit. Choi Hyun-suk prepares to deliver the final blow and confidently declares that it's his. He reminisces about the noble lady with golden hair and dreams of having 5 children. Taking the leap, he contemplates his future vacation, but decides he will protect it himself. Urine is killed and the system reports a level up. Hyunseok is surprised to have risen 4 levels with 1 hit and is excited about the possibility of reaching level 20 by the end of the day. He rejoices that he can become stronger. Meanwhile, goblins surround the fallen Urine. One of them prepares to strike, but the hero suddenly collides with him, slipping and exclaiming his failure. Hyunseok laughs, anticipating the opportunity to strike the final blow. He is determined to seize every opportunity to win. On the battlefield, he sees goblins gathering around the fallen monsters. Rachel asks if it's really over. Hyunseok confirms that all the monsters have been captured and offers to return. Meanwhile, the goblins, satisfied with their prey, laugh and exchange pieces of meat. One of them demands something bigger. Suddenly, Hyunseok hears him being called out. The fist holding the piece of meat asks what he's looking at, distracting the hero from his musings. Hyunseok is shocked to see cook Culkin calmly eating military supplies. Culkin explains that this is a cook's privilege, as monster meat gets boring quickly. He thinks that a fresh piece of meat makes life better and offers Hyunseok a taste, since he too has risked his life. Hyunseok, surprised that everyone is taking risks for raw meat, tastes it. The meat turns out to have a strong odor, but is tasteless and tough. He reflects that such a dish would get bad reviews in Korea. After thinking about it, Hyunseok decides that if he can make something tastier, he can win the trust of others. He dreams of becoming a god of cooks, imagining how it would change his life. Hyunseok, determined, opens a hero store. His companion is shocked by this. He only has 70 points left after buying a toy bone for Bobo, but he decides to spend all his remaining points on a new skill and item. With a bright smile and burning eyes, he chooses a rank F cooking skill that will allow him to cook better. His companion is surprised and asks what exactly he bought. Hyunseok confidently declares that he will show the demons his power. He also purchases a special seasoning with high levels of monosodium glutamate, which he considers the pinnacle of Korean cuisine. You want part 2? Write the secret word in the comments. Slave. Don't forget to subscribe and give me a like, because that's how I release the sequel even faster. See you soon and bye-bye.